been roughly 20 years now since the war finally came to an end in what was once known as Yugoslavia. The historical narrative of Serbia's role in that decade-long conflict, Europe's deadliest since World War II, is hotly contested, and it really shouldn't be. The evidence, as per the United Nations and multiple other investigative bodies, tells a tale of disproportionate Serbian aggression, brutality, and ethnic cleansing. The alternative version of that history is now being told in book form by authors who have been convicted of war crimes that include genocide. The convicts turned writers, former Serbian generals and politicians, aren't just out for exoneration. In the minds of many Serbian nationalists, they already have that. They want to rewrite the historical record while feeding into nationalistic narratives favored by Serbian elites, including TV channels, which might explain the popularity of the books among those who hold political power in Belgrade. The Listening Post's Johanna Hoes now on historical revisionism in the former Yugoslavia and the inmates who have gone from convicted war criminals to published authors.
Autobiographies, war memoirs, novels, even poetry. A total of 119 books written from behind bars by 22 alleged and convicted war criminals. This literary output has been coming out of the detention center of the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, the ICTY, since 1993.
The scope of literature coming from the ICTY is astounding. Given that the ICTY indicted 161 persons as a whole, out of which about 140 actually went into the Scheveningen, which is a detention unit of the Hague Tribunal, you can say that every 1 in 6 prisoners of the ICTY turned out to be an author of some kind. Many of those people are writing for purely political reasons, for propaganda reasons.
There is a certain insistence on exonerating yourself. Some of it is obviously also creating a parallel narrative, which is only a part of a systematic approach in which actual facts, actual events that have taken place are now being questioned.
And they don't care about facts. And they don't care what you or I think about it. This is tailor-made for the Serbs. And it's made in a way that would fit in the pre-existing narratives of what Yugoslavia was, of what and who the Serbs are. It's about stories. Stories make nations. Radovan Karadzic is not going to be remembered as a murdering, genocidal maniac, but as a great Serbian hero who actually made the first Serb state on the left bank of the Drina River. Nebojša Pavković is going to be remembered by future generations of Serbs not as a murderer of Albanian children in Kosovo, but as a great war hero who stood up to NATO. End of story.
Revisionist books written by convicted war criminals are commonly available here in the Serbian capital, Belgrade, including the bookstore behind me, which belongs to the Ministry of Defense. But these books don't just do well with the average Serb. The country's politicians, including those in government, are big fans too. In October last year, the publishing arm of Serbia's defense ministry took to Belgrade's yearly book fair to promote its newest release, Merciful Angel's Embrace. The multi-volume wartime diary, written by former army general Nebojša Pavković, who is currently serving a 22-year prison sentence for crimes against humanity, details his experiences in the Kosovo War. Another prominent spot at the fair was reserved for alleged war criminal Vojislav Šešelj. After 11 years in detention, Šešelj has returned to Serbian politics. And going by the name of his publishing house, Greater Serbia, there's little question as to what his books are about. Pavković and Šešelj's presence at the prestigious fair doesn't speak to the quality of their literary work. Rather, it speaks to the popularity of their nationalist message. A narrative that 18 years after the end of the war is still actively endorsed by those in power.
Those who were convicted in the Hague Tribunal are widely seen as heroes in their communities. And in Serbia, Many of those who participated in making decisions during the war are now in power, and they benefit from promoting these kinds of false messages and narratives. For instance, Pavković's books that are promoted by the Ministry of Defense offer blow-by-blow accounts of the NATO bombing during the Kosovo War. However, they omit the crimes committed by the Serbs. These books are an attempt to completely ignore the Albanian victims, to keep war crimes silent, and to present the NATO bombing as a hostile attack by international forces, in which only innocent Serbs were killed.
When it comes to some of the books that Šešelj has published, we know that, for instance, Aleksandar Vučić, the current president of Serbia, wrote a couple of forewords to some of the editions. Now, if you have a legitimate representative of a country, write a foreword for books of an alleged war criminal, that is a huge issue. And I think that tells you a lot about just how far the current political structures will go in order to push this narrative onto the public.
Serbian media play a significant role in bolstering revisionist narratives in the country. In November last year, former Bosnian Serb army commander Ratko Mladić, who is serving a life sentence for war crimes and genocide, dialed into a morning breakfast show on Serbia's privately owned entertainment channel Happy TV, sending his love to the nation from prison.
Ratko Mladić himself phoned in from The Hague and finished the conversation by saying, most of the media see themselves as organs of state. They see themselves as being part of the Serbian cause and contributing to the Serbian cause, which is the only way you can explain having Ratko Mladić phone into a morning talk show. Having just been found guilty of genocide. Speak of normalization, huh?
The Srebrenica genocide, which took place here in 1995, is by far the most popular topic for historical revisionists. The execution of at least 8,000 Muslim men and boys at the hands of the Bosnian Serb security forces, the worst mass killing on European soil since the Second World War, is a huge stain on Bosnian Serb history. And numerous books have been written about it by those wanting to recast the facts of that massacre.
Srebrenica is by far the thorniest issue among all discussed. Srebrenica is also by far the best prosecuted crime among all the crimes. In the 90s, it's proven beyond reasonable doubt that culprits are the leadership of army of Bosnian Serbs. And I then wonder how come that judicial facts which had been so well established are facing the stone wall. What does it take, actually?
It's a question that those pushing back against these revisionist narratives, whether about Srebrenica or any other brutal episode in the Yugoslav wars, have been asking themselves for years. But as long as these rewrites of history are not only condoned, but actively endorsed by those in power, attempts to tell the facts as they are falling on deaf ears.
Right now, we don't have a young generation politically mature enough to ask important questions or inquire about facts that are being hidden. My generation, which was trying to create a consciousness about these crimes and the people behind them, well, we have been defeated. We weren't able to win back the narrative. We couldn't make the media follow this up. And the crimes, those responsible for them, the peace agreements, these have been completely removed from the agenda. In its place, we have this populism on the rise, and there seems no space for pushback.
As a survivor of Srebrenica, as a survivor of one genocidal episode, the first emotion that comes is anger. Then disbelief, and then resolve to fight that. We're dealing with regimes that don't have a problem explaining to their own electorate why they're spending millions in genocide denial. People have actually managed to move on from their own experience in the 90s. And that's the experience of being shot at, being killed, losing your relative, losing your father, losing your brother, mother, sister, whatever. But the people who did that to them have not moved an inch. Denying a past genocide is never just about denying genocide in the past. It's about planning or hoping for the next one. Otherwise, why do it? Why glorify genocidal maniacs? Why glorify mass murderers unless you're prepared to repeat it?